So in this video, I'm going to talk about how our thinking can contribute to us getting things done more easily, or how it can really sort of grind you to a halt. And I'll give you a couple of different ways, very easy ways for you to structure your thought in such a way that it's easier to take on big tasks or projects. And when I'm talking about this, one thing I would recommend is think about something big or something challenging, or even an unpleasant task, something that maybe you put off. And the first thing that I would invite you to do is just notice how you're thinking about that task now, and how do you represent it to yourself. You know, usually there's a picture of some kind, and like we talk about a lot, you might have an internal dialogue about it. You might have feelings in your body. And what I've noticed in my experience is when I'm pushing things away or putting things off, it's usually because I haven't learned to think about the thing in a structured way. I haven't broken it down. You know, there's this idea of chunking things down into bite-sized pieces. And when we think about things as sort of an undifferentiated mass of, or jumble or tangle of different steps, you know, a mixture of things that we know and things that we don't know, questions, and it can be quite overwhelming. And when we get overwhelmed, it generates bad feelings in our body, and we will push it away. Most people will. It's natural for our nervous system, if we're thinking about things in that way, to push things off. So what we want to do is really learn how to think about things and break things down in such a way that we're stacking the deck in our favor. And you know, there's certain images or metaphors that I really like. I love this idea of stacking the deck in my favor. I love the idea of like when you go bowling, you get there and the pins are set up. They're there waiting for you, and all you have to do is take this ball, and it's really fun, and you just blast it down the lane. And if you're lucky, knock down a bunch of pins. Or another image that I really like is that of a whole set of dominoes set up in a pattern, and all you have to do is tip that first domino, and it just creates this cascade of you know, all the dominoes tipping over. So when I think about a project, I want to keep breaking it down more and more and more, and organizing the steps so that when it's time to work, I just have to show up and tip over that first domino. And usually I know I've broken it down enough and I've organized it enough when I actually start getting excited about tipping that first domino. There's a point where it's like the equation in your head flips from this is going to be unpleasant and I can't handle it and I can't figure it out. And then it shifts in your mind to like, oh my God, I'm going to crush this. And I can just, you know, like I said, you know, tip the first domino and you're off to the races. So breaking things down it's a part of the process. It's not like most people's brains don't just break things down automatically. It's a skill you learn. I recommend take out a piece of paper and keep breaking down the project or whatever it is you're working on into the smallest steps imaginable. And you just want to keep going deeper and deeper and deeper until each step is really, really easy. And part of that process is you're going to run into parts of the process that you don't understand yet. You know, I tend to call these a black box. It's like, I know that something has to happen, I know where it starts and I know where I want it to end, but I don't know what happens in the middle. And for those, you may have to do some research. You may have to ask somebody for help. And that's the way you break down that black box. It's like, who do I know who's done this? Who can I talk to? Can I start to break it down? You know, what questions do I need to ask? So I'll write each of those down as a step that will help me solve that black box until that also is something that I can just execute on. So once I've broken things down, then I want to look at all the different to-dos and group them, group them into subcategories or steps that can be done together. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to organize all the different steps of a project. So like I said, so that when I get there, it's perfectly clear what I have to do. And it's really easy. So all I have to do is show up, and it's as if somebody left a perfectly organized to-do list on my desk so that I know what to do. I don't have to figure it out on the spot. And that's a really important point, because I know for myself, if I sit down to do some work and I also have to figure out how to do the work, it can be a bit overwhelming or confusing. So I like to break those into two separate phases: the part of me that really plans the work, and then the part of me that executes the work. In the book Getting Things Done by David Allen, he talks about the same thing. He said he has his planner self, and then he has a self that just cranks widgets. And you want to be really, really kind to that self that just cranks widgets. That's the part that's doing the lifting, so to speak. But in my experience, the breaking things down is the actual doing. If you break things down sufficiently, everything else is really easy. If you think about if you were going to buy a new refrigerator, it's not just so easy to go to the store and get one. There are a lot of steps that you have to do leading up to that moment. Maybe you research online. Maybe you measure the space where it's going to go. You explore different options or different variables. And once you've organized all those steps and sorted through all those variables, then it's easy to go to the store and just get the one that you want. So that's what I'm talking about. So the next time you find yourself, pushing something off, notice that you're pushing things off and say, okay, how can I begin to break this down so that I can set up all the dominoes nice and easily, so that when it's time to do the work, I just show up and I'm excited to tap that first one. So I recommend you try that with 3 or 4 or 10 projects and see how much easier it can make it for you to plow through a project.